Let me ask you something real. How much energy are you burning right now trying to keep it all together? How exhausting is it to wake up every single day wearing that mask of strength when inside you're barely holding on? You scroll through life watching everyone else seem so put together, so bulletproof, while you're standing there wondering when you'll finally reach that place where words don't sting, where rejection doesn't crush you, where loss doesn't leave you hollow. Here's what nobody's telling you. That place you're chasing, it doesn't exist, not in the way you think it does. And thank God for that, because the version you're imagining would turn you into something less than human, something numb and disconnected. What if I told you that real strength isn't about becoming impenetrable? What if the entire game you've been playing is rigged from the start? Stay with me, because what I'm about to share will completely flip your understanding of emotional resilience. This isn't another pep talk about positive thinking or fake it till you make it. This is about confronting a truth that might sting at first, but will ultimately set you free. Every time someone dismisses you, every time you face criticism, every time you experience betrayal, you believe the source of your agony is out there. It's them. It's their words, their actions, their choices. But here's the uncomfortable reality nobody wants to hear. External events don't have inherent power over you. They only have the power you give them through the wounds you're carrying inside. Think about it. Two people can experience the exact same criticism. One person shrugs it off, barely registers it. The other person spirals for days, questioning everything about themselves. What's the difference? It's not the criticism itself. It's where that criticism lands inside each person. It's the unhealed places it touches. Your pain isn't coming from outside. It's coming from the stories you've been telling yourself, the beliefs you formed when you were too young to know better, the conclusions you drew about your worth based on limited information. Every current hurt is actually an echo of something older, something you've been carrying without even realizing it. The philosopher and psychologist Carl Jung understood this deeply. He recognized that our external struggles are reflections of our internal landscape. The chaos you experience in your relationships, in your reactions, in your emotional life, that's just showing you what remains unresolved within. Your outer world is a mirror, and most people spend their entire lives angry at their reflection instead of turning around to see what's actually there. So you're still suffering because you're still operating from a place of trying to control the uncontrollable. You're trying to be good enough, accommodating enough, perfect enough, thinking that if you just get it right, people will stop hurting you. But that's a prison you've built yourself. You're trading your authenticity for the illusion of safety, and it's costing you everything. Real freedom doesn't come from changing how others treat you. It comes from understanding why certain treatments affect you so deeply. It comes from healing those internal wounds so that when life inevitably brings challenges, you remain centered instead of shattered. Here's a question that might shake you. How much of your daily life are you actually conscious of? I don't mean awake in the literal sense. I mean truly aware. Most people are operating on autopilot, reacting to triggers they don't understand, making choices based on patterns they didn't choose, feeling emotions that seem to come out of nowhere. You think you're driving your life, but really, you're being driven by forces you haven't examined. Jung called this the unconscious, that vast territory of forgotten memories, buried trauma, unexpressed desires and fears you've pushed down because they were too uncomfortable to face. Every time you overreact to something small, that's your unconscious speaking. Every time you sabotage something good in your life, that's your unconscious protecting you from something it perceives as dangerous. Every time you repeat the same painful pattern in relationships, in work, in life, that's your unconscious running the show while you wonder why things never change. The unconscious doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It doesn't fade away because you're busy or distracted. Instead, it finds creative ways to get your attention. It manifests as anxiety that seems to come from nowhere. It shows up as that relationship dynamic you swore you'd never repeat, but somehow you're living through again. It appears as self-destructive behaviors that you logically know are bad for you, but can't seem to stop. Jung said something profound. Until you make what's unconscious conscious, it will control your existence, and you'll mistake it for destiny. You'll think this is just how life is, just who you are, just your luck. But it's not fate, it's patterns, and patterns can be understood, confronted, and transformed. The path forward isn't about judging these hidden parts of yourself. It's not about condemning the patterns or trying to muscle through them with willpower alone. Real change requires acceptance first. You have to be willing to look at the parts of yourself you've been running from. The shame, the rage, the neediness, the fear, all of it. Not to drown in it, but to understand it. Because here's the truth, what you don't acknowledge owns you. What you refuse to see has complete power over you. But what you bring into the light, what you examine with honesty and compassion, loses its grip. It becomes just another part of your story instead of the invisible author writing every chapter. Most people have this backwards. They think safety comes from building walls, from closing off, from pretending nothing affects them anymore. They put on armor and call it strength. They develop a tough exterior and mistake it for resilience. But inside, they're still bleeding. Inside, they're still reacting to everything, still controlled by the very pain they're trying to escape. Here's what real emotional strength looks like. It's not about being untouchable. It's about being integrated. It's about knowing yourself so completely, including the messy parts, the broken parts, the parts you're not proud of, that external events can't rock your foundation. When you've done the work of understanding your triggers, your patterns, your wounds, something shifts. You stop being a puppet dancing to every string the world pulls. You start observing, instead of just reacting. You create space between what happens and how you respond, and in that space, there's freedom. Integration is what Jung called individuation. It's the process of becoming your true self, not the version you think you need to be to earn love, not the persona you wear to fit in or succeed, but the authentic totality of who you actually are. And this process isn't comfortable. It requires you to let go of identities you've invested years building. It demands you face aspects of yourself you've deemed unacceptable. But this discomfort, this is growth. This is evolution. Most people quit right here because it feels like everything is falling apart, but what's actually happening is that false structures are crumbling, so something real can emerge. The masks are dissolving, so your true face can be seen. You don't become unshakable by avoiding pain. You become unshakable by walking through the fire of self-discovery and emerging with clarity about who you are. When you've confronted your own darkness, when you've sat with your shame and your fear and said, "I see you, and you don't define me," then the opinions of others lose their power. The rejection stings less because you're not looking to external validation to tell you who you are. The criticism lands differently because you know the truth of yourself. This is the paradox. True strength comes from vulnerability. Real protection comes from exposure. You become untouchable not by building thicker walls, but by removing them and discovering that your core, your essence, was never actually at risk. If you're feeling this message deep in your soul, if something is clicking into place right now, do me a favor and help others discover this truth too. Hit that like button and subscribe so this reaches people who need to hear it. Real transformation spreads through awareness, and your engagement tells the algorithm to share this with others who are ready. Society taught you to fear suffering. From childhood, you learned that pain means something is wrong, that you're failing, that you need to fix it immediately. So you spent your life running from discomfort, numbing yourself, distracting yourself, doing anything to avoid feeling the hard stuff. But what if pain is actually a messenger? What if your suffering is trying to tell you something crucial about what needs to change, about what needs attention, about parts of yourself that are demanding to be seen? Jung viewed depression and suffering not as enemies to be conquered, but as signals from the deeper parts of ourselves. When emotional pain shows up, it's often because there's a disconnect between who you're being and who you actually are. It's your psyche saying, this path isn't working, this mask is suffocating you, this way of living is killing something essential. The pain you're experiencing isn't random, it's not punishment, it's not evidence that you're broken, it's information. It's your internal guidance system trying to get your attention because you've been ignoring the quiet whispers for so long that now it has to scream. Most people experience suffering and immediately try to escape it. They medicate it with distractions, with substances, with endless activity, with anything that keeps them from feeling. But this is like having a fire alarm going off in your house and just removing the batteries instead of looking for the fire. Real growth happens when you stop running, when you turn toward the discomfort and ask, what are you trying to show me? When you sit with the anxiety, the sadness, the anger, and listen to what it's communicating about your life, your choices, your patterns. This doesn't mean wallowing, it doesn't mean drowning in your feelings. It means becoming curious instead of resistant. It means treating your emotional pain as valuable data rather than as something to be ashamed of. The transformation you're seeking is on the other side of the discomfort you're avoiding. The freedom you want exists beyond the fear you're running from. And every time you choose to face what you've been fleeing, you take back a piece of your power. You integrate another fragment of yourself. You become more whole. Let's be honest about something most motivational content won't tell you. The journey to becoming truly yourself, to achieving real integration, is often a lonely one. Not because you'll be abandoned, but because you'll outgrow spaces you used to fit into. You'll change in ways that make it impossible to maintain certain dynamics. You'll see through illusions that others are still living by. When you start doing this work, when you begin peeling back your own layers and confronting your unconscious patterns, you inevitably shift. The things that used to satisfy you don't anymore. The conversations that used to feel normal now feel superficial. The relationships that were built on your old patterns don't quite fit your new awareness. This isn't about becoming judgmental or superior. It's about natural evolution. You're not rejecting others. You're growing beyond certain limitations. And not everyone will understand that. Not everyone will be ready to go where you're going. Jung's process of individuation is fundamentally a solitary journey. Yes, others can support you. Therapists can guide you. Communities can encourage you. But the actual work of confronting your shadow, integrating your unconscious, becoming whole, that's something only you can do. No one can walk through your internal fire for you. And there will be moments when you question everything, when the old you felt safer even though it was limiting, when the masks felt easier even though they were suffocating, when the numbness felt preferable to the rawness of full awareness. This is normal. This is part of the process. But here's what keeps you going. On the other side of this discomfort is a kind of freedom most people never experience. It's the freedom of knowing yourself so completely that you don't need constant external validation. It's the freedom of being so grounded in your truth that others' opinions become interesting data points rather than definitions of your worth. It's the freedom of responding to life from a place of choice rather than compulsion. The loneliness of this journey is temporary. The freedom it brings is permanent. And eventually you'll find that you're not actually alone. You'll connect with others who have done their own work, who meet you at a depth that wasn't previously possible. Quality relationships replace quantity. Authentic connection replaces surface-level interaction. After everything we've discussed, here's the core truth. Nothing will protect you from life's challenges if you remain unconscious of your internal landscape. No amount of success, no relationship, no achievement, no strategy will make you truly resilient if you haven't done the work of knowing yourself. The real armor isn't hardness. It's not being cold or indifferent or detached. The real armor is awareness. It's understanding your patterns so well that you see them before they control you. It's knowing your triggers so intimately that you can observe them without being overtaken by them. It's recognizing your wounds clearly enough that you can take responsibility for healing them instead of expecting the world to stop poking them. When you operate from this place of deep self-knowledge, something remarkable happens. You still feel everything. You still experience pain, disappointment, frustration. But these emotions move through you differently. They don't stick. They don't define you. They don't control your actions. You become like a mountain in a storm. The storm is real. The wind is powerful. But the mountain remains. Not because it's hard or cold, but because it's grounded. It's connected to something deeper than the surface weather. This is what people mean when they talk about being centered. It's not about being unfeeling. It's about being so aware of what you feel and why you feel it, that you maintain your equilibrium, even when things get intense. You're present with your emotions without being possessed by them. The world will keep throwing challenges at you. People will disappoint you. Life will surprise you with loss and change and uncertainty. But when you've done this work, when you've integrated your shadow, when you've made the unconscious conscious, these external events lose their power to devastate you. You respond instead of react. You choose instead of being compelled. You remain yourself even when everything around you is chaos. And this is true strength. This is what it means to be emotionally unshakable. So here's where we land. You have a choice right now. You can keep living the way you have been, trying to control the uncontrollable, building walls that don't actually protect you, running from the very pain that holds the key to your freedom. Or you can make a different choice. You can choose awareness. You can choose to turn toward what you've been avoiding. You can choose to start the journey of knowing yourself, all of yourself, not just the parts that are easy to accept. This isn't easy work. Nobody's pretending it is, but it's the only work that actually changes anything. Everything else is just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. This is about building a new ship entirely. The path is clear. Stop trying to eliminate pain and start trying to understand it. Stop trying to control others and start mastering yourself. Stop building armor and start building awareness. Stop living on the surface and start diving deep. Jung's invitation and mine to you is to become who you actually are, not who you think you should be. To integrate every part of yourself, the light and the shadow. To make the unconscious conscious so you can finally live as a free person instead of a puppet. The suffering you've experienced doesn't have to be wasted. It can be the catalyst for the most profound transformation of your life, but only if you're willing to look at it, to learn from it, to let it reshape you into something more whole. You've made it this far in this message, which tells me something about you. It tells me you're ready, or at least ready to consider being ready. The question is, what will you do with this awareness? Will you nod along and then return to the same patterns, or will you take the first step on this journey of integration? Will you choose comfortable unconsciousness or uncomfortable growth? The world doesn't need more people pretending to be strong. It needs more people doing the hard work of becoming whole. It needs more people living from authenticity instead of fear. It needs you to stop hiding and start showing up as your full self. Your pain has been trying to wake you up. This message is trying to wake you up. The only question left is, will you listen? If this resonated with you, if something shifted inside as you absorbed these truths, leave a comment below saying, I choose awareness. Let's create a community of people committed to real transformation, not fake strength. and make sure you're subscribed for the next part of this journey, because real change happens when you keep going beyond the first realization. The path is here. The choice is yours. What will you do with it?